Resident Evil has been hiding some of gaming's most disturbing tragedies in plain sight for nearly 3 decades. Every mutated monster, every experimental subject, every bioweapon failure tells a story that's far worse than the visual horror suggests. That's why today, I'm breaking down the 8 most disturbing enemies in Resident Evil lore and the documented cruelty that created them, starting with the girl who survived 31 years of torture searching for her dead mother, Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor isn't just Umbrella's longest surviving test subject, and after decades of documented files across multiple games, nobody can explain how she survived experiments that killed literally everyone else in under a week. Umbrella kidnapped 14-year-old Lisa and her mother Jessica on November 10, 1967. They needed subjects for progenitor virus testing at the Spencer Mansion facility. Most subjects died within 72 hours. The successful ones became mindless bioweapons with zero cognitive function. Lisa received progenitor Type B, then Type A, then Ebola, then multiple T-virus variants, and finally the NE alpha parasite. Every single virus strain had a 100% fatality rate when used alone. She survived all of them simultaneously. But then the research notes reveal something impossible. Lisa didn't just survive the viruses, she integrated them. Her body didn't fight the infections. It absorbed them and used their genetic material to enhance itself. By 1988, 21 years after her first injection, Umbrella researchers documented that she had developed complete immunity to every strain they created. Here's where the files get disturbing. Jessica died within days of infection. Lisa's cognitive function deteriorated so severely, she couldn't recognize that her mother was dead. When female researchers passed through the lab, Lisa attacked them and tore their faces off, believing one of them was her mother. Her diary from November 1967 states she found Mom, but she was fake. Not her real mom. Same face, but different inside. She spent 3 decades collecting faces and wearing them, desperately searching for a woman buried in a tomb directly beneath her cell. The July 1988 research file from William Birkin describes her as biologically impossible. Okay, fine. But impossible doesn't explain the actual data. The Type A virus killed 47 subjects in 3 days. Lisa integrated it in 6 hours. The NE alpha parasite drove every other host violently insane within 5 minutes. Lisa absorbed the parasite completely. It vanished into her bloodstream. That absorption led Birkin to discover the G virus inside her body. Dr. Birkin's notes from 1988 state Lisa represents an evolutionary dead end that somehow became viable. His later observations mention mechanisms beyond our understanding, but he never explains what those mechanisms are. How did incompatible virus strains merge inside one person? Why did she retain enough consciousness to remember her mother's scent 30 years later? How did she survive in the abandoned laboratory basement for a decade without food or water? Players who examined the original game files discovered something Capcom removed. Lisa was supposed to speak. Full voice lines were recorded. An actress performed dialogue, showing Lisa had coherent thoughts and could form sentences. Then Capcom deleted every trace of it from the final game and turned her into a shambling monster who only says one word in 1998 when she finally finds her mother's skeleton. Mother. But if surviving every virus Umbrella created seems horrifying, wait until you learn about the bioweapon that's literally made from stitched together corpses with parasites fighting for control. Regeneradors. Regeneradors are the only enemy in Resident Evil created by implanting multiple parasites into human corpses, and after reading the development files from Los Illuminados' island laboratory, the creation process is somehow worse than watching them regenerate in the actual game. The process requires at least 3 Las Plagas parasites transplanted into a single body. Sounds simple enough. Living hosts receive a single parasite that takes over motor functions, while the person remains technically alive. Regeneradors work completely differently. According to the Biohazard Kaitai Shinsho guidebook, when parasites are transplanted into living humans, body temperature rises abnormally and the host dies while feeling great pain. So researchers had to use corpses instead. They implanted multiple plagas into dead bodies, then froze them to prevent decomposition. But then the documented lab reports reveal what happens inside the body. The parasites don't cooperate, they fight each other to occupy the consciousness. Multiple organisms battling for control of the same nervous system while taking over the role of organs. The corpse has no immune response, so the parasites successfully colonize every system. The original person is gone. What remains is several parasites struggling for dominance inside reanimated flesh. The island facility's Case 2002F file documents an escape incident. One regenerador broke containment and rampaged through the laboratory for 20 hours straight. 20 hours! It killed 7 researchers and injured 19 people before teams could subdue it. The incident report notes that intelligence loss combined with advanced regeneration proved to be a horrific combination. The creature felt no pain, understood no commands, and regenerated from every wound in seconds. Here's the biological impossibility. The parasites function as the heart, plural. Multiple organisms pumping blood through a dead body. Shooting them does nothing because the flesh instantly repairs itself. The only way to kill them requires destroying the parasites hidden inside the chest cavity. But you can't see them without thermal imaging equipment. You're shooting blindly into a corpse that's been dead for months, hoping to hit organisms the size of leeches buried in rotting tissue. And that's just the standard Regenerador. Some of them transform when killed. They explode, regenerate in an instant, and reappear covered in retractable spikes, the Iron Maiden variant, named after the medieval torture device because it draws victims close, then impales them on protruding needles from every angle. The Los Illuminados researchers documented that victims were likely local villagers, people who lived in the area before infection. Their corpses were stolen, frozen, implanted with parasites, and reanimated without consent or awareness. The only mercy is that no human thinking capacity remains. But if fighting parasites for consciousness inside a corpse sounds disturbing, wait until you learn about the hallucination, specifically designed to weaponize your guilt about your own child, the baby. The baby is the only enemy in Resident Evil history that isn't biologically real, and that somehow makes it worse, because Donna Beneviento created a hallucination, specifically targeting Ethan Winters' deepest fear about his own daughter. The mechanism works through mold-infected flowers growing around House Beneviento. Donna possessed a Cadu parasite, allowing her to secrete a signal-producing substance which controls plants infected by the mutamycete. When Ethan inhaled the pollen, his brain became vulnerable to manipulation. The baby manifested from his subconscious. It represents his terror that Rose might not grow up as a normal human because of her connection to the mold. The creature has a grotesquely oversized fetal appearance and calls out Daddy while pursuing him through the basement. It's psychological warfare disguised as survival horror. But then you learn about Donna's backstory and realize she's weaponizing her own trauma. Donna suffered severe childhood isolation because of a facial scar. Her father created the doll Angie as her only companion. Then both parents committed suicide after her Aunt Bernadette died in Miranda's Cadu experiments. Mother Miranda's assessment file explicitly labels Donna as mentally underdeveloped and declares her a failure as a vessel for Ava's resurrection. The baby attacks something no other Resident Evil enemy targets: your emotions, not your health bar, your actual psychological state as a parent. Director Morimasa Sato confirmed this section was inspired by Silent Hill's approach to horror, a deliberate departure from Resident Evil's science-based monsters. Development notes describe the design as Eraserhead-esque. American colleagues working on the game considered Donna the scariest of the four lords, despite her minimal screen time and subtle presence. Here's what makes it genuinely disturbing. The hallucination pulls from Ethan's subconscious fears he cannot consciously acknowledge or verbalize. The creature knows things about his anxieties that he hasn't admitted to himself. Some interpretations suggest it represents guilt about considering abortion during Mia's pregnancy. The baby's fetal design and the mansion's exploration of parenting themes support this reading. The victim creates their own tormentor. Donna provides the mechanism. Ethan's mind provides the specific nightmare. The baby only exists because Ethan is terrified of being a bad father. But if one hallucination targeting parental guilt seems cruel, wait until you meet the bioweapon who was literally designed as a child and only wanted someone to love her, Eveline. Eveline was engineered as a bioweapon designed to infiltrate enemy territory and turn hostile forces into allies through mind control. And the only thing she actually wanted was a family that wouldn't abandon her. The connections created Eveline, codenamed E001, using mold samples supplied by Mother Miranda. She also contains DNA from Miranda's deceased daughter Eva, who died of Spanish flu in 1919. Born in the early 2000s, she was artificially aged to appear 10 years old for infiltration purposes. The bioweapons program, starting in 1997, aimed to create mind control weapons. 8 D-series prototypes died before Eveline's successful creation. Dahlia died at 319 days from rapid aging. Dolores committed suicide after killing D06 Diana and D07 Daniela. Datamined files reveal Eveline reportedly carried Dahlia's severed arm as a twisted memento, suggesting she formed attachments to her sisters. But then the cargo ship incident reveals what happens when a bioweapon feels rejected. On October 5th, 2014, Agent Mia Winters posed as Eveline's mother aboard the Annabelle. A hurricane destabilized Eveline psychologically. When Agent Alan Droney called her a little bitch, she accelerated his infection to lethal speed, killed the entire crew, and infected Mia while vomiting mold throughout the ship. The Baker family tragedy shows what her powers actually do. Jack Baker rescued Eveline and Mia from the shipwreck wreckage near Dulvey, Louisiana. Within days, the entire family was infected and under her control. Jack's confession to Ethan states we're just regular people who got fucked over. All she wants is a family. The Bakers spent 3 years abducting homeless people and tourists to expand Eveline's family through forced infection. Here's the biological horror behind her loneliness. Eveline aged at 25 times the normal human rate without medication. By 2017, she appeared as an 80-year-old woman, confined to a wheelchair. Her body was failing, even as her desperation for family intensified. Her dying words after Ethan administers the toxin are, "Why does everyone hate me?" Eveline was created to destroy, rejected by Miranda as unsuitable, and abandoned by every caretaker. She forced people to love her because nobody would do so willingly. But if weaponized loneliness seems tragic, wait until you learn about the father whose mutating body actively hunted his own daughter while his dying consciousness screamed her name. William Birkin. William Birkin's G-Virus transformation represents the complete corruption of paternal instinct, and the most disturbing documented detail is that his mutating body instinctively hunted his daughter Sherry, while his dying consciousness still screamed her name. Birkin discovered the G-Virus in 1988 by studying Lisa Trevor's absorption of the Ne-alpha parasite. He spent a decade developing it at the Nest facility beneath Raccoon City. His research notes describe a vision of a new world utopia built with controlled G-infection. The virus was his life's work and his obsession. In September 1998, he planned to defect to the U.S. military with G-Virus samples. Umbrella's USS team, led by Hunk, intercepted him. Birkin was shot multiple times and left bleeding out on the laboratory floor. In desperation, he injected himself with his final G-Virus sample. But then the transformation reveals how the G-Virus actually works. Unlike the T-Virus, which kills and reanimates, the G-Virus causes continuous evolution through 5 documented stages. G1 Birkin retained intelligence and memories. He cried out Sherry's name and attempted to protect his daughter while fighting the virus's instincts. G2 sprouted a second head and diminished his human features. G3 destroyed all mental faculties and erased every memory of his former existence. G4 made his body too heavy for bipedal movement. G5 became a living lump of flesh and teeth with remains of not yet digested victims protruding from the mass. The biological horror is the hunting mechanism. The G-Virus drives hosts to seek genetically compatible hosts for embryo implantation. Only hosts with matching DNA can accept embryos without becoming G-mutants themselves. This means Birkin's body instinctively sought Sherry. His daughter was the most compatible vessel. Chief Irons was implanted with a G-embryo and transformed into a grotesque host. Sherry was infected but saved by the Devil vaccine. In Resident Evil 2 Remake, G1 Birkin's roars become less monstrous when his mutating arm briefly regresses. He screams, "Sherry, help me," and kill in alternating patterns. He occasionally pauses mid-combat to swing at thin air, or attempt to pry open the eye growing from his shoulder. The implication is clear. Part of him knows what his body is trying to do. But if corrupted paternal love seems tragic, wait until you meet the university student who reached for her sister's hand as she transformed into a monster, Deborah Harper. Deborah Harper's transformation in Resident Evil 6 lasted less than 3 minutes. And the most disturbing documented detail is that she retained enough consciousness to reach for her sister's hand as her body mutated in real time. Deborah was a university student, 4 years younger than her sister Helena Harper. When Helena shot Deborah's abusive ex-boyfriend, National Security Advisor Derek Simmons kidnapped Deborah as leverage. He forced Helena to help bypass President Benford's security for the Tall Oaks bioterror attack, promising Deborah's safe return. Despite Helena's compliance, Simmons ordered Deborah's termination. Members of the family, Simmons' secret organization, intervened. They wanted to observe what the C-Virus would do to her youthful, healthy body. For over an hour, researchers documented 0 visible transformation signs. Disappointed, the family evacuated before quarantine and abandoned Deborah in the underground laboratory. But then Helena and Leon found her apparently asleep and began carrying her to safety. Deborah suddenly combusted into flames while screaming in agony. Strange goo hardened over her body like a shell, forming a chrysalid cocoon. The cocoon cracked open. A mutated Deborah emerged. Before the transformation was completed, Deborah reached her hand out from the chrysalid toward Helena. Helena reached back. Their fingers almost touched before Ada Wong shot Deborah with a crossbow to prevent full mutation. Too late. The mutation finished anyway. Helena held her transformed sister and apologized repeatedly. Deborah began secondary mutation and violently pushed Helena away. The mutated form retained vestiges of her former beauty, humanoid physique, blonde hair, eyes without pupils. She sprouted claw-like tentacles from her spine and exhibited bizarrely sexual traits, suggestive giggling, seductively stroking her own body, the gentle personality inverted into something mocking intimacy. Here's what breaks established C-virus documentation. Every other C-virus transformation in Resident Evil 6 occurs instantly or during chrysalid dormancy. Victims are unconscious during mutation. Deborah remained conscious. She reached for her sister while her body transformed. That reaching hand suggests she knew exactly what was happening and tried to connect with Helena one final time. Helena grabbed Deborah's hand as she fell from a cliff edge. She apologized and promised never to cry until her sister was avenged. Then Helena deliberately let go, acknowledging her sister was gone. But if witnessing your sister transform seems horrifying, wait until you learn about the father who was experimented on by the children he created through genetic engineering, Nosferatu. Alexander Ashford was transformed into a mindless monster by the children he created through genetic engineering. And after 15 years chained in the Antarctic facility, he still recognized his son's voice screaming for help. Alexander, 6th Earl of the Ashford family and son of Umbrella co-founder Edward Ashford, became obsessed with restoring family prestige. He discovered the gene regulating intellect and extracted DNA from family matriarch Veronica's remains. He combined this with the intelligence gene and his own DNA to create twins Alfred and Alexia through artificial insemination. Alexia became a child prodigy, appointed chief senior researcher at Umbrella's Antarctica facility at age 10. Alfred had only slightly above average intelligence. Alexander grew horrified by his creation's complete disregard for human life. He hid the records documenting their artificial origins and created the linear launcher as a last resort weapon against Alexia if she ever threatened the world. But then in March 1983, Alfred and Alexia discovered the secret room revealing their origins. They learned they were created merely to revitalize the family rather than from love. Their revenge was immediate. They used their father as the first test subject for Alexia's T. Veronica virus. The experiment destroyed Alexander's brain but strengthened his body exponentially. He mutated into Nosferatu, a mindless, insane monster developing tentacle appendages from his back. The ant DNA in T. Veronica gave him Queen Ant traits. His cells gained infinite replication, granting him biological immortality without awareness or consciousness. Deemed a failed experiment by his own children, Nosferatu was chained in a straitjacket in the Antarctic base's secret room for 15 years. Workers documented hearing his roars echo through the facility night after night. Here's the detail that suggests he retained fragments of memory. In 1998, when Alfred was attacked and screamed for help, Nosferatu broke free from his chains. Some fragment of consciousness recognized his son's voice and responded to it. Alexander recorded a message before his transformation, begging whoever finds it to use the linear launcher to stop Alexia, proof he foresaw her threat. When Chris Redfield finds Nosferatu's corpse, Alexia dismissively states that's how she dealt with insignificant bugs. Her own father was reduced to an insect, but if family betrayal seems cruel, wait until you learn about the bioweapon intelligent enough to hunt specific targets, while the human host's consciousness is systematically erased. Nemesis T-type. Nemesis is intelligent enough to speak, plan ambushes, and operate rocket launchers. And the documented creation process reveals the human who once inhabited that body had their consciousness systematically erased and replaced by a parasitic brain. Umbrella Europe's 6th laboratory in France developed the NE alpha parasite between the early 1980s and 1998 to solve the intelligence bottleneck. T-virus infection caused severe brain damage, making bioweapons uncontrollable. The parasite was engineered to replace brain functions while maintaining combat intelligence. The implantation process injects it at cellular level directly into the host's spinal cord. It moves toward and attaches near the medulla oblongata, consumes T-infected cells to grow exponentially, forms a unique brain resembling an enlarged human brain, erodes the central nervous system, destroys the frontal lobe completely, and modifies the neural network to link its brain with remaining body functions. But then the 1988 prototype testing reveals the connection to Lisa Trevor. The first functional NE-alpha killed every test subject within 5 minutes. Wesker and Birkin tested it on Lisa Trevor as a last resort. Lisa completely absorbed the parasite. It vanished into her bloodstream. This failure led directly to discovering the G-virus inside her body. Nemesis exists because of her suffering. The 1998 production model used a mass-produced T-103 Tyrant as the base. When researchers implanted the refined NE-alpha into the tyrant's spine, the parasite's tentacles ripped through the tyrant's face, right arm, right breast, and belly. Development staff had to staple the flesh back together. The tyrant lost its nose, lips, and right eye in the process. They dressed it in a bulletproof coat that functions as both protection and restraining jacket. Here's the documented intelligence level. Nemesis follows precise instructions, makes independent tactical decisions, and operates complex weapons requiring specialized knowledge. Upon spotting its target, it speaks the target's name, STARS. That's not mimicry. That's comprehension and verbal communication. The horror is what happened to the original host. The NE-alpha destroys the frontal lobe and overwrites all motor functions. Whatever human existed before is completely erased. Nemesis is conscious enough to speak and plan, but the person is gone. If you enjoyed this video and want to see Resident Evil's biggest mysteries explained, click the video on screen now.